Welcome to the third part of our series where we rate and rank bowler arsenals from viewers like you guys. If you guys want to be a part of this series, send me an email at the link in our description, and then I can get you on this list. We have a ton of arsenals to go through. What we do is we give you suggestions on what would fit well with your arsenal to make it more well-rounded, and we categorize all of your equipment no matter how old or how new it is. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure to send an email. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe and follow so that you can see these videos and try to hopefully use them to help educate you on where certain bowling balls fit in a lineup. Otherwise, enjoy. Our next arsenal is going to be William. So William doesn't have any stats on himself. That's a-okay, but he's got a ton of bowling balls. So we're going to go through every single one, rank exactly where it's going to fit. So starting off the top, he's got some interesting ones, by the way. For example, this first one is a Black Widow Caramel Urethane. This is supposed to have an old school urethane cover stock on it, so it's not what's on the Purple Hammer. However, it's got that Black Widow core, super early rolling. It's going to be super slow down lane. Kind of reminds me of like what the fast pitch kind of did, but with a massive core in it. So going on, we have the Attention Star. That is, of course, a strong sharp balls. We've covered many times. Eternity Pie, strong smooth. There's more Eternity Pies on all of these lists than I expected, by the way. Kind of shocking. Hammer Effect comes way before the Attention Star. Next, we have the Revolt Uprising. So William did only say the motive Revolt. There's a lot of Revolts out there. I'm assuming it's the bright orange Uprising that came out. This was a limited edition bowling ball. This thing was insanely strong and early. Very chuggy. So I'm actually putting it in the strong and smooth category. It's going to be on the far end of it because it is a symmetrical ball, but it's still going to be there. Next one up is one of the old hustles. That one is going to be in the sharp category. I believe that hustle is I believe that's the Pro, if I remember right. I think that one was a hybrid. Moving on, Harsh Reality Pearl. That comes before the effect and before the Attention Star. Venom Shock fits squarely in the medium smooth category. Sublime fits in the medium sharp. Next, we have a Thrill Solid. This is going to fit in the weak smooth. He just said Thrill. He might have meant Max Thrill or Top Thrill. So we went Thrill Solid. Arctic Vibe also fits in the medium smooth category. I think it fits a little bit after the Thrill series. Just a little, well, if it's the old Thrills, I think the Vibe actually fits in front of it. If it's the new Thrills, I think it actually fits after. But we're going to put it in front for right now. Summit Peak is going to be, between that and the Sublime is very close. Very close. I think we're going to go Summit Peak into the Sublime for this one. These two balls are very close together. Moving on, Summit, that's going to be high up in the medium smooth. The Gem is one of the earliest bowling balls ever made. Black Widow 3.0 is actually going to come... Man, that one's really close to the Pie. The Pie and the Black Widow react very similarly. So I'm going to put the Black Widow right below the Pie, but not by much. The next one's kind of cool. It is the Attention Black Pearl. So this is an overseas only bowling ball, and it has a very weak attention core, but then stronger attention core, a weak hyper responsive cover stock, which has never come stateside. I'm putting it a little bit in front of the Attention Star, not by much, but just a little bit in front of that Attention Star. Well, no, let's go a little bit after. We're going to go a little bit after. The Attention Black Pearl is older. It was probably about 3 to 4-ish years old, I believe. And it does not have AI core. So I think the Attention Star is actually going to be a little earlier. Moving on, phase 2 is going to fit between the Sublime and Venom Shock. This is an awesome medium smooth 1-2-3 combo, by the way. But now we have the Primal Shock. The Primal Shock is going to fit a little... Nope, not there. Not there, Zach. There we go. Right after the phase 2, but right before the Venom Shock. The Primal Shock gets a little further down lane, and it's a little bit sharper than things like the Summit and the phase 2. Moving on to the Ion Pro, that's going to be earliest in the weak and smooth category. Next up is a Reality. The Reality is probably... I'm going to put it right after the Black Widow 3.0, but right before the Revolt yet. The Revolt does hook super early, but I think that Reality will hook a little bit earlier. Ion Max is going to go right after the Gem. It is very close, but it is a little bit later than the Gem, not by much though. Speaking of, we have the Magic Gem. The Magic Gem is a hybrid. It's going to fit a little bit below that Ion Max. Next up is a Phase AI. The Phase AI is going to fit after all of the medium and sharp bowling balls. This one's a little bit weaker on the medium sharp list. But then we have a Zen. We have Zen, Sublime, and Summit Peak are all very close together, like highly close together. I would go Zen before Sublime. I would go Zen right before Sublime. That and the Summit Peak are very close also, but I think the Peak is a little earlier. Next, we have the Hustle 3TP. That is a Pearl version of the Hustle series, older one, probably about 4 years old. And then TNT Infused is going to fit right before the AI, but after the Sublime. So this is where all of the bowling balls fit for William. I believe we hit all of them. Looking at the list, it's a very good combination of bowling balls. There are a few overlapping balls in here. The Gem, Ion Max, and Magic Gem are all pretty close. Then the Pi, the Black Widow, and the Reality are all a bit close. The Strong Sharp looks really good, honestly. I think these all four look good together. The Medium Smooths look awesome together. This is a really good combo for medium and smooth bowling balls. Medium Sharps have a little bit of overlap. The Summit Peak, the Zen, and the Sublime are kind of close. The TNT and AI are a little close, but not crazy. And then the rest of the balls actually fit very, very well together. So I don't really have many recommendations for this one. Looks really good. You have a few aging bowling balls on here. Like you do still have an OG Zen on here. You have an old Thrill on here, old Hustles. So if you do need to get something, I'd recommend something for this weak and sharp category. You could go something like a one of the Vibes if you like the Arctic. You could go like a Max Thrill Pearl instead. Something like that might fit a little better in the weak and sharp slot. But William, here is your arsenal. Hope you enjoy. Our next arsenal up is from Pat, otherwise known as Jest Fishing over here on YouTube. Will be tagged down in the description. And he has a lot of bowling balls here. I believe it's about 15-ish bowling balls that we're going to get through. So we are starting off right from the top. We have a little bit of a mixture of Brunswick, of Storm. I believe there was a motive ball. No motive balls. Just kidding. A little bit of Brunswick, a little bit of Storm, all of the fun stuff. So we're starting with the Archetype Hybrid. Archetype Hybrid is going to be early in this strong and sharp category. That thing was much sharper than people thought it would be. Another attention star. Everybody has an attention star. It's going to fit later on the strong and sharp list. The Messenger Power Core Solid. This was the remake to the Messenger series. It's a couple of years old now from Columbia 300, who is now known as the Throwback series, basically. That's all they make anymore. And that's going to be early in the weak and smooth category. The Purple Slammer, that's going to be urethane. Best urethane on the market. No questions asked. Super CUDA Power Core Pearl, worst name in bowling, is going to be in the medium and sharp category. Pretty much square in the middle, in all honesty. It's not going to really be too high or too low in there. Tundra Blue Fire, what I saw as the best weak and sharp ball from 2024. Next, we have a Phase 3. The Phase 3 hybrid phase, pretty strong cover. Of course, has that phase core in it. It's going to come a little bit earlier than the Super CUDA Power Core Pearl. It's just going to roll a little bit earlier. It's going to be kind of similar down lane, but once the Phase 3 gets a few too many games in it, it just isn't good anymore, which is very unfortunate because I think it's the best looking bowling ball ever made. Next up, we have the GB4 Hybrid. I'm going to put the GB4 Hybrid after the Phase 3, but before the Super CUDA. So the GB4 Hybrid, while a hybrid just like the Phase 3, it does have a weaker core to it and a weaker cover than the Phase 3 does. Next up is the OG Envy. That thing was insanely strong, very, very strong. Going to be squarely in the strong and smooth list. Next up, we have the Emerge. We have the Hybrid and we have the Pearl. We're starting with the Pearl one for now. The Pearl one's actually going to fit right in between the Archetype Hybrid and the Attention Star. And since we see the Emerge Hybrid on here, we're going to put it right in front of that also. The Archetype is much earlier than the Emerge Hybrid. Next up is the One. Which the One is this one? This is the Encore, I believe. Correct? This is the remix. My bad. This is the remix. This one's actually going to go in the strong and smooth category. I believe this is the hybrid version, and it's just such a strong core. But we do have the One Reverb, which is going to actually fit in front of the Emerges and after the Archetype Hybrid. So the Reverb is the Pearl version. The remix, I believe, was the hybrid version. Don't quote me on that one. But I know the first two, the ones, the remix and the Encore, were insanely early and slow compared to the Reverb. Next up, Wolverine Dark Moss. Wolverine Dark Moss is one I haven't seen in a long time. This one was pretty weak. It fits right on the edge of medium sharp and weak and sharp. It's either the strongest weak and sharp ball or the weakest medium sharp. I'm going to put it as the weakest medium sharp ball. Next up is the Hammer Purple Reactive Bowling Ball. This was the Purple Hammer core, but with a reactive cover to it instead of the urethane cover stock to it. This one was pretty good for a weak and smooth bowling ball. Fits a little bit after the Messenger, a little bit later hooking and a little bit sharper. Still really good in general. Now we get a couple weird ones. We get a couple really weird ones. Now, these, I'm going to give a fair warning. These are fairly old bowling balls that are coming up next. So, are they going to be perfect compared to a lot of them that are very recent? Maybe not, but let's get into it. Starting with the conspiracy scheme. The conspiracy series was really good from Radical, really, really good. I'm putting that one in the strong and smooth category, but a little bit later in the strong and smooth category. The conspiracies weren't the strongest bowling balls ever made. They weren't like the mass bias that's being made today. They were still strong because they were radical balls. Radical balls hook super early. Next, OG Brunswick Infinity. Speaking of, I'm going to put that one later in the strong. Well, I'm actually putting it right before the Emerge. This was kind of weak. It was kind of a weak ball. I'm going to put it right before the Emerge Hybrid. The Emerge Hybrid, I believe, comes out shiny, and that makes it a little bit sharper. That Infinity still is very, very smooth. Like even the Beyond Infinity, the Pearl version is very, very smooth for being a Pearl ball. Trailblazer solid. This was a medium and smooth bowling ball. It's going to be the only medium and smooth bowling ball on the list. Going to be a little precursor to what I recommend at the end of this video. Next up, Deviate Chill. It's going to be the earliest weak and smooth bowling ball. And then we have the Defender Hybrid. Defender Hybrid is going to fit. I think that's going to be a strong and smooth ball, but after the conspiracy, yeah, I think I'm going to put it after the conspiracy theme. These two are really close together, the scheme and the Defender Hybrid. They could mix and match a little bit and flip-flop, but that is kind of where I see them if they're drilled identical. So looking at the list, there's only one big issue I see, and that's the medium smooth category. I'd recommend something else there. The Trailblazer Solid is also very, very old. So you have a lot of strong and sharp bowling balls, a lot of them that are fairly close. You could probably trim out one or two of these if you really want. Otherwise, this is still a good amount of ball reactions down lane. Same with the medium sharp slot. There's a lot of cool reactions that you have out of this. Same with the weak and smooth. Weak and sharp isn't the most usable in the world, especially if you're a league bowler, but could add to that if you want to. But I would just recommend a different medium and smooth ball. You have phase 2s out there. You have GB5s. You have Venom Shocks. You have Primal Shocks. You have the new Lethal Venom. You have a lot of cool bowling balls that can fit there. Hazmat Solids, things like that. That would be my recommendations. But otherwise, overall, a pretty good arsenal. A lot of bowling balls, a lot of older ones, but a couple newer ones that kind of mix and match pretty well. Next one up, we have an anonymous bowler. They didn't want their name to be shown on the video. That's a-okay, but they are two-handed and rev dominant. So they don't have too many bowling balls, so it should be fairly quick. But let's go through them and see where some of the gaps are. So we're going to start with the ones that we know from previous viewer arsenals. Ion Max in the strong smooth. Phase 2 in the medium smooth. We see a Hustle in the weak and sharp. We see a Level in the weak and smooth. Phase 5 in medium sharp. Pitch Black is a urethane. The Vibo is a strong sharp. Hellcat Accelerate now. Now that we have one ball in each category, well done, by the way, to have a ball in each category. That's awesome with not having too many. So that makes it a little bit easy because this arsenal right here, this 7-ball arsenal technically is actually really good. Ion Max, Vibo, Phase 2, Phase 5, Level, Hustle, fantastic. They're fantastic job with those. But let's see where these last two line up. We have the Hellcat Accelerate. I'm going to put that after the Ion Max. However, Deviate at the time that they made the Accelerate was hooking very, very early. Their ASIMs hooked super, super early. You might be able to flip-flop the Ion Max and the Accelerate. Kind of depends how they roll. The Accelerate was weird. The Hellcat series didn't stick around all that long, so unfortunate for them, but it was just kind of an oddball. But then we have the Hustle Rip. The Hustle Rip is going to be the high end of the weak and sharp category. Otherwise, it could be the low end of the weak and smooth category. That ball is a little bit interesting. It's a shiny solid. It's just like the OG Hustle Inc. that won a PBA title a couple years ago, probably about 10 years ago. It is an amazing, amazing hustle. So I think it fits really well with this other Hustle M&M. That's a really good weak ball combo for you because you can sand the Hustle Rip and it can still be good. So looking at the arsenal at the end of the day, like I mentioned, very, very well-rounded. You have one ball in each category. So I would recommend just if you want to add a new ball, none of these are really all that old. The Phase 5 is probably the oldest one. You could get a new medium sharp ball to fit alongside the Phase 5, like a Road Warrior or the new IQ AI. If you want a strong and sharp ball that fits well, you could go Attention Star. If you want a weaker medium and smooth ball, the Summit Ascent is right there. So a lot of good options, but otherwise perfect start to the arsenal. Next arsenal up is Johnny, who is a right-handed bowler. We don't know any other stats about Johnny, but let's get into his arsenal. There are not many bowling balls on this list, I believe about 11, so it should be kind of quick, but let's see how many bowling balls, where everything fits, and then just see what could be added to the arsenal. So let's go through the ones that we know. Attention Star is a strong sharp, Black Widow is a strong smooth, Pitch Black is a urethane, IQ Ruby, weak and sharp, Optimum Idol Pearl is a medium and sharp bowling ball. Now we get into some odd ones. So those are the ones that we know for sure from previous Arsenal videos. If you haven't watched my other ones, please go watch the others. They're a little deeper where we first explain why some of these balls fit where they do into these different categories. But looking at it, that hits a couple of our main categories. Now we have the OG Knockout. The OG Knockout was a play off of the Melee series from Brunswick. That was one of their best symmetrical series, probably their best symmetrical series ever, right next to the Rhino line, which goes back. It's a tale as old as time for the Rhinos. The Knockouts were good. They weren't great, but they were a good symmetrical ball when Brunswick wasn't really making good symmetrical equipment. They were really acing it on the ASIM side. Next up, we have a Raw. Now, I believe Johnny just said a Raw. Yeah, Hammer Raw, so it could be any of them. But I'm just putting in the Raw Pearl right now. The green, jade, black, and smoke, I believe is the name of it. Jade, smoke, black or something. It's going to be a weak and sharp ball. Arguably, easily the weakest ball on the list. Next up is the Exotic Gem. Exotic Gem is one of the earliest asymmetrical pearl hooking bowling balls of the last 5 years. So that's going to fit in the strong sharp, but very, very early in it. Next up is the OG Defender. Now, the OG Defender, I think, was a little weaker on the ASIM side, so it's going to go right after the Black Widow 3.0, but it's going to be very close to the Widow. It's going to be, I think, a different ball motion overall. It's going to be a lot smoother and flatter than the Black Widow 3.0, but it still fits in the strong and smooth slot. Next up is a Sneak Attack. Now, the Sneak Attack is Radical's lowest line. They are generally very, very weak, usually pretty smooth. Some other balls in this series have been the Sneak Attacks, the Counter Attacks. There were a couple others in the past that I don't remember the names of. Either way, it's going to fit between the IQ Ruby and the Hammer Raw. Finally is the Perfect Mindset. That is definitely... We're going to go after the Defender. We're going to go after the Defender. The Perfect Mindset was a hybrid ASIM, very, very early rolling. I think it has HK22 on it, as all Brunswick stuff does nowadays. However, I think it'll come a little bit after the Defender because it is a hybrid, and that pushes its reaction a little further down lane, and the Mindset isn't the strongest ASIM core in the world. So, looking at your arsenal, you said you were a righty, but that's all we know, which is A-OK. So, you have a pretty good lineup right now. Weak and smooth category doesn't have anything. That's A-OK, like I've mentioned in the past. That isn't the most needed category. Probably one too many weak and sharp options. Not a big deal. Otherwise, medium smooth, the knockout is very old, so might need something new in that medium smooth slot to fall below the Black Widow. That could be Hazmat Solid, GB5, Phase 2, Rockstar, Lethal Venom, Venom Shock, Black Venom, things like that. And then the medium sharp Optimum Idol Pearl is a really good option. There's a pretty big gap between that and the IQ Ruby. If you want to fill that, a Road Warrior is a good option, or the new IQ AI. Otherwise, a pretty okay arsenal, pretty good start to an arsenal. The Defender is getting a little bit old too, so might want to watch out for that guy. Same with the Exotic Gem if they are going to end up dying someday, because bowling balls do have a lifespan, so be ready for that. Otherwise, hope this helps. Moving on to our next arsenal, we have Matthew throwing 14 pounds, who's been bowling for 45 years and also is rev dominant bowler. So we'll keep that in mind. We'll try to limit ourselves to focus on the medium and the weaker categories, especially when you're rev dominant. Remember, if you're speed dominant, you want to kind of stick to these strong categories. If you're rev dominant, you want to stick to the weaker categories a little bit more. It's good to have bowling balls that fill everything, but you want to be a little heavier on the side that you are more dominant on. But let's get it started. We are going to put in the balls that we know for a fact, and that is Harsh Reality Solid, arguably the earliest bowling ball made in the last couple of years. I see a Venom Shock in here. That is a medium smooth ball. I see a Hyper Venom. That's a medium and sharp ball. I see a Raw. That's going to be one of the weakest weak and sharp bowling balls. What are some other ones we know of? Let's see. I think, we have an effect. We'll go strong sharp there. And then the rest we're going to go through one by one. Starting with the Black Venom. The Black Venom, according to Motive's guide, comes before a Venom Shock. fits very well. That is just directly from Motive's ball guide, one of the greatest things bowlers have to use to be able to determine where bowling balls fit. But moving on from that, we have the Hazmat Solid. That is eons earlier than both the Black Venom and the Venom Shock. It's going to be, this is similar to more like a Lethal Venom or even a little stronger than a Lethal Venom. The Hazmat Solid is a very strong symmetrical solid ball. Omega Crux. That is an oldie, but I don't even want to say goodie. It was a cool ball. It was a very cool ball. It was a sanded pearl bowling ball, the Crux core, but then a very early pearl cover stock. We are actually going to put it in the strong and smooth category. It's either the strongest ball in the strong and sharp category, or it's going to be the weakest in the strong and smooth category. That thing is weird. Very, very weird ball. Worked wonders on house shots, though. There was a lot of honor score shot with that Omega. Next up, we have the Supra, OG Supra. Oops, I did the wrong thing. There we go. The OG Supra is on the weak and sharp category, comes in front of the Raw series. This one was weirdly angular in odd situations. The original Supra was odd. The new ones are a lot better. The GT and the Rally are really good. The OG was interesting. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. I believe EJ probably won a title with it. I feel like he used it on a TV show somewhere, but that one definitely comes above the Raw series. Tank Rampage Pearl. That is going to fit in the urethane category. It's not urethane, but it's pretty much urethane. Next up is the Venom Recoil. The Venom Recoil is basically a Black Venom. The Black Venom and Venom Recoil are nearly identical in every way, shape, and form. The Venom Recoil does hook a little earlier, is a little smoother than the Black Venom. However, they're very, very close together. Pride Dynasty. Now, what is earlier, the Hazmat Solid or the Pride Dynasty? I am going to go Pride Dynasty. Oof. I'm going to go that before there we go. Before the Hazmat Solid. The Pride Dynasty is mildly asymmetrical, but the cover is super, super strong, and that thing rolls very, very early. It's stronger than most people think. That almost could be in the strong and smooth category, in my opinion. Next up is the Venom EJ. I think the Venom EJ hooks even earlier than the Hazmat Solid, even though the Hazmat Solid hooks so early. That Venom EJ is very, very strong. Web Tour Hybrid. The Web Tour Hybrid is weird. It's a hybrid ball. However, I believe it came out of the box dull. I might be wrong on that one. So I'm going to put it in front of the Hyper Venom in the medium and sharp category. It usually fits more as a medium smooth ball because it is so smooth with such a low differential. But if you put a little polish on it, it can be very angular. So I'm going to put it at the far end of the medium and sharp category. Otherwise, it could fit after the Venom Shock on the other side. Crimson Jackal. Crimson Jackal definitely comes a little bit after the Hammer Effect. It's a little bit later, a little bit sharper. That one is cleaner than most people give it credit for, and especially compared to the Hammer Effect, which is a little chuggier. All right, now we have our weirdest one of the day. For the first time on the channel, we have a swag ball in our viewer reviews. We have the Incredible Phenom. I had to Google this ball a little bit. It is a 252 RG, like a 051 differential and like a 017 intermediate differential. So it's a little bit later rolling, smooth bowling ball. I know it's going to hook earlier than an Omega Crux because swag hooks super, super early compared to the other brands. But it's not going to be as early as the Harsh, in my opinion, because the RG is so high. Have I seen this ball go down the lane? No. Could I be wrong on this one? Yes, absolutely. Max Throw Pearl. That is gonna, ooh, that's tough. Compared to the OG Supra, I'm gonna go before the OG Supra. Not by much. Those will be very, very close together. Nuclear Forge is going to fit in the strong and sharp category. It's going to come later than both the Crimson Jackal and the Effect. Forge Flare is one of the earliest and smoothest bowling balls ever created by a lot. I don't know if it's going to hook earlier than the Incredible Phenom. I'm going to assume it is. That ball was dumb. It hooked so early compared to every other ball. It acted like urethane to a certain degree. It was reactive urethane at the end of the day. And then the Hitter Pearl. I've always had this one as a strong and sharp ball, but on the very, very weak end, kind of like the Attention Star, because it is a very mildly asymmetrical bowling ball. So let's look at the arsenal quick and see where the holes are and see where some balls are a little too close together. So overall, very good spread of things in 5 of the 6 categories. I mean, that strong smooth category is awesome. I believe Matthew did say rev dominant. So there is a little bit of a push on this stronger side. That's okay. It's really personal preference. But I think if I had to pick, I would swap one of these medium smooth balls down to a weakened smooth ball. So it has a little bit of a hand in every company to a certain degree. It looks like some of the newer balls are actually more from Motive. If you need a Motive ball, Max Thrill Solid could be a really good one. That fits in the weak and smooth category. Another good option is an IQ Tour or an Ion Pro from Storm. That could be weak enough also that it'll fit. Medium sharp category, nothing too crazy, nothing too angular. The Hypervenom is still not that angular of a bowling ball. It's still a little bit smooth for being a pearl. And then, like I mentioned with the Web Tour Hybrid, that one is pretty smooth at the end of the day. So what I would recommend is possibly another medium sharp ball to fit in here. Can definitely add in a weak and smooth. And then there's a little bit of overlap in the medium smooth. Not really much though. It really is a Motive lineup specifically. So it does look pretty okay. Overall, looks very, very good. I'd say just fill a couple gaps and you will be set. The next arsenal up is Nicholas. Now, Nicholas doesn't have a very big arsenal. One-hander, both tournaments and league. However, Nicholas has a couple of bowling balls that he doesn't really like, and the ones that we are not going to put in this video are the 900 Global Exponent, the 900 Global Afterburner, the 900 Global Reality, and the 900 Global Zen Soul. So bowling balls that he doesn't really like, but still has. So if you don't like a ball, I don't recommend bringing it to tournaments and league because there is a mental aspect where you need to actually like the bowling balls that you throw. If you hate a bowling ball that you're throwing, you're probably not going to have the best results with it. So I don't really recommend keeping those bowling balls around. You could probably sell them to try to be able to buy another ball that we recommend at the end of this. But let's look into what you have right now. It is really Storm only. So we have Optimum Idol Solid in the medium and smooth category, Ion Pro in weak and smooth, Phase AI in weak and sharp, Magic Gem in strong and smooth, and the OG Eternity in the strong and sharp category. Very good spread of bowling balls. Fantastic spread of bowling balls, really. Everything is far enough apart where it is a-okay. You start with that Magic Gem. You can go down to the Eternity. If you start with the Optimum Idol, you can go over to the Phase AI. Overall, looks really, really good. Now, if you end up selling any of those bowling balls, what should you get next? I think one gap that you have here that could be filled, of course, the weak and sharp category. You want something after that Phase AI, or it could be a weak, medium, and sharp ball, like a Road Warrior could fit really well in this arsenal. Otherwise, the strong and smooth ball, the Magic Gem's a little old, the Eternity is a little bit old. I'd recommend a ball to pair with the Eternity, maybe something like well, the Virtual Energy is unfortunately gone. The Equinox could fit. Attention Star will be a little weaker, will fit in between the Phase AI and the Eternity. If you want something stronger, the Harsh Pearl is there. Otherwise, the Origin is also right there. So really good start to an arsenal, but I'd recommend trying to sell a couple of those bowling balls you don't like. I don't really recommend having bowling balls that you hate because your mental side won't really enjoy throwing them that much. So that's something always good to keep in mind. Next, we are on to Michael. Michael is a matched bowler, so balanced, otherwise also a righty, and has a handful of bowling balls here, nothing too crazy for an arsenal. So let's go through and put what we know. There's a couple of old bowling balls on this list, which is kind of cool. Let me verify that one is supposed to be there. It is. There's one specific bowling ball that I think we really, need to focus on. IQ Tour Gold, the Goldie ball, fantastic. But let's put the Black Widow in the strong smooth. Let's put the Dumpster Fireball in the urethane category. What else do we know out of here? Really none of, let's put Beyond Infinity already in the strong sharp. We've covered that on the channel. Deadly Rattler in medium sharp. OG Exponent in weak and smooth. We'll wait on the Scorpion Low Flare. We'll wait on the Proton. We'll wait on the Code Black. All right, let's start up. Storm Code Black. This is one of the best Storm asymmetrical pearl balls made in a while. This one was really good from a lot of people. The Code series was fantastic. They're still making them overseas. I just saw a Forest Lock actually online on sale, which was nuts. But the Code Black is going to be later than the Beyond Infinity. The Code Black has the R2S cover stock, if I remember right. That definitely comes after the Beyond Infinity. Next up is the Proton. The Proton is going to come before the Black Widow. The Proton core is massively strong, and the cover of the Proton is very, very strong. You might recommend trying to polish it. It might look kind of good like that. I kind of want to polish mine. I have one yet that I don't throw that often. Next up is the Cyclone, an old Ebonite Cyclone. This thing is very old. It was really good from a lot of people, but it really is an entry-level bowling ball, so it's going to fit in the weak and sharp category. Next one up is the Scorpion Low Flare. Now, what comes first, the Scorpion Low Flare or the 900 Global Exponent? That is a wonderful question. I am going to put the Low Flare in the weak and smooth category, but in front of the Exponent. That is really the best spot for it. Now, the Scorpion Low Flare, I have said before, could fit in the medium smooth category. I'm going to change it and put it in the weak and smooth. It fits a little bit better there after throwing it a lot and seeing it thrown by others. Paragon Pearl, that is eons before the Beyond Infinity and the Code Black. That one is a very early hooking bowling ball, especially for being an ASIM Pearl. OG Melee. This, I don't know where this ball fits in all honesty. The Brunswick Melee series was fantastic. It was a really good symmetrical ball. The OG is pretty old at the end of the day. I don't remember how old it is, but it is pretty old. You know, let's just do this quick. Brunswick Melee. The OG is from, drum roll please, shockingly, it's not for sale anywhere. Who would have guessed? Brunswick Bowling, do you want to load for me, please? I want to be able to showcase what this ball is. So the Melee Jab is probably the one you know most from this series. Melee Jab SE, Melee Carbon. They came out with a lot of Melees. This ball came out in 253050. Exactly what we thought. It does not say. Bowling this month will have it. November 2013. Sheesh, that is a little bit old. We're going to put it in the medium smooth slot, though. Regular OG Physics. I'm going to have the regular Physics after the Black Widow solely because it's a hybrid and hooks a little bit later, but that ball wants to hook super early. And now, the greatest bowling ball of all time. Not really, but it is the most sought after bowling ball of all time. The Gold Ball, the IQ Tour Pearl, the original IQ Pearl. This one is in the weak and sharp category, comes before the Cyclone series. So, looking at the arsenal, very well rounded. There's a lot of older bowling balls on here, though. That Brunswick Melee might not react that great anymore. It's about 12 years old, so be ready for that. If it is still in good shape, you're good to go. Otherwise, you might want to replace it with something like, if you want a Brunswick brand ball, you might want to go like a Hazmat Solid. You might want to go like a GB5. Otherwise, Phase 2, Rockstar. Rockstar might be the closest bowling ball to it that's on the market today. Some of the scent might not be bad. A lot of really good medium and smooth bowling balls. Otherwise, very well-rounded, very, very nice job building an arsenal of a lot of old bowling balls and a lot of new ones. Next bowler up is Jason. Now, Jason has a very tiny arsenal, so we can talk about a lot of gaps that can be filled. And these are three of the best bowling balls on the market right now. Black Widow 3.0, we've talked about a lot. Strong smooth ball. Attention Star, we've talked about a lot. My number 2 bowling ball of the year in 2024 comes in as a strong sharp. Arctic Vibe, fantastic bowling ball. One of the top bowling balls of the year also. Weak and smooth category. So, what he has right now is 2 asymmetric balls and then a very weak symmetrical ball. So for the next bowling ball up, I would recommend something in this medium smooth or medium sharp category. A lot of awesome options here. If you want to stick with hammer, there's things like the Scorpion Strike in the medium sharp category is a perfect gap between the Attention Star and anything else. You want to go solid, but if you want to stick with hammer again, the Hazmat Solid is right there. The GB5 from Ebonite is kind of close. Again, Phase 2, Summit Ascent, Rockstar, Lethal Venom, Black Venom, Venom Shock. Lot of really good options. These are two areas in bowling that you can find a ton of really good bowling balls for. So I would recommend filling this slot next. Now, we don't know much about Jason minus a name, so I don't know if he's rev dominant, balance, speed dominant, where he bowls, if it's a league, all that jazz. So I would recommend just an in-between ball so there's not as big of a gap between your Black Widow Attention Star and your Arctic Vibe. Next up, we are on a very large arsenal from Lewis, who is primarily a motive bowling fan. So Lewis is a rev-dominant one-hander, but doesn't use his thumb. So let's kick it off early. IQ Tour Ruby, jumping into the weak and sharp category. We're going to put a couple of things that we know where they fit, and then we'll start comparing after. Crimson Jackal, strong and sharp. We're going to go Jackal Onyx up here in the strong and smooth category. We have a Tank Rampage Pearl in the urethane slot. I see an Ion Pro in the weak and smooth. Phase 2 in the medium smooth. Do we have any medium sharp balls on the list right now? I see a Primal Rage. There we go. All right, we have one from every single category. Perfect. Now let's start comparing. Next up, Max Thrill Pearl. Max Thrill Pearl is going to be a little bit after the IQ Tour Ruby. Not by much, though. Not by much. Nuclear Forge coming up next, according to Motive's ball chart, comes right after the Crimson Jackal. Fits perfectly. I 100% agree with that ball chart. Venom Shock comes well after the phase 2. Honestly, a really good, smooth, solid, symmetrical combo. But then we have the EJ. The EJ is actually going to fit in front of the phase 2. The phase 2 is going to sandwich both of the Venoms. The EJ hooks super early. The Venom is much, much later than it. Supra Rally coming up next. The Super Rally comes in on the ball chart after the Max Steel Pearl. I kind of agree. They're very, very close together. You could kind of flip-flop that and the Max Thrill Pearl. I don't know if you need both of them, but that is kind of where they fit. IQ Tour Solid, the GOAT, coming right after the Ion Pro, because the Ion Pro is the baby of the Phase 2 and the IQ Tour. Next up, we're into the tanks. These are the tough ones. The tanks are some of the weirdest bowling balls ever made. They are microcell polymer, so not urethane, but they pretty much are urethane. Now, I do see a lot of tanks on here. We have a couple odd ones. The blue tank is the only true urethane one. That one's actually going to come first. The one problem with the blue tank is it shined up really quick because it was true urethane, but it did get very shiny and kind of garbage after a little bit of time. Next, we have the Combat and the Covert. I might be mixing those two up. We're putting them both after the Tank Rampage Pearl. I don't know which of these comes first between the Covert and the Combat, in all honesty. These were pretty old bowling balls. A lot of the OG tanks are a little bit interesting, so we're going to put them there for now. All right, but we're going to go to the Ion Max. The Ion... We're going to put the Ion Max right below the Jackal Onyx, but it's very, very close. Honestly, super, super close together. I don't really know if we could keep them together or flip-flop them, but they are going to be very close. Sub-Zero Forge coming up next. That is going to be after both of them, for sure. Pride Empire. That comes before the Primal Rage. The Pride Empire, while being very, very sharp and very late, it still has that asymmetrical core in it, which brings it above the Primal Rage. Absolute Power coming in next. We've thrown the Absolute Power all over the place. It has a weak cover, but a very strong core. I'm actually going to drill one here pretty soon. I'm pretty excited about that. I think it's going to go at the end of the Strong and Smooth. I think that's where we've put it a lot, and I think we're going to keep it there. Next up is the Pride Liberty. This is kind of funny. The Pride Liberty is going to go after the Phase 2, before the Venom Shock, and after the EJ. So these three bowling balls are kind of close, and the Venom is off in its own little corner doing Venom Shock GOAT things. These three are kind of close. I don't know if you need all three, though. Physics Blackout is coming up next. That's going to come earliest in the Strong and Sharp category. Next is a Mythic Jackal. Ooh. Mythic Jackal, I think, is later than the Physics Blackout, but then earlier than the Crimson. The Mythic was the last hybrid Jackal that we got. It was kind of well liked. It was a little earlier than people thought. It came out of the box super shiny from what I remember. But it does fit after the Blackout, but before the Crimson. Finally is a Forza GT. Oh, boy. Oh, that is an old ball. Now, I did have one of these for about 10 games before it cracked on me. I had a problem where a lot of bowling balls were cracking on me back in the late 2010s. This one was medium smooth. I believe it was after a Venom Shock. The Forza core wasn't very strong. This one is probably my most iffy bowling ball on the list. I don't really know where it fits. I think it fits after the Venom Shock, if I remember right. But looking at this arsenal, this is very, very well-rounded. Impressively well-rounded. 2 balls in each category at a minimum. A lot of mix between Storm and Motive, which is really, really cool. A lot of balls that aren't insanely close together. There's, of course, some overlap, like I mentioned. But overall, very, very well done. So Lewis, who's rev dominant, one hand, no thumb. You might need another weak and smooth ball in here or a weak and sharp ball because you're rev dominant. But otherwise, I really like this. Well done. Moving to the next arsenal is Isaac, who is a righty two-handed bowler. Not a crazy big arsenal, but let's kick it off. So we're going to put a few things where we know they fit from previous videos. IQ Tour Ruby, weak and sharp. This is the reactive purple hammer. That is going to fit in the weak and smooth category. The rest we haven't really talked about, I don't think. I think this is going to be the first that we see a couple of these bowling balls. So Ebonite Crusher, the OG Ebonite Crusher, not the Crusher Hybrid, although it is a Crusher Hybrid because it is a hybrid Crusher. Terrible, terrible naming scheme. I'm very sorry, Brunswick. This one was just a little bit rough for you guys. The Crusher was okay. Very smooth, very slow compared to the Crusher Hybrid. But this one's also Crusher Hybrid. I hate the naming. This one's going to be in the strong and smooth category. Next up is the Radioactive Vibe. That is also a weak and smooth ball. We're going to put it in front of the Purple Reactive. It has a bigger core. It has about the same cover stock, maybe a little bit weaker, but not crazy amount. Those two are pretty close together in all honesty, in my opinion. Next up is the Atlas Hybrid. Some people swear that this is one of the best balls made in the last couple of years. That's awesome. I love that for them. But this one is going to be in the strong and sharp category. The Journey is a medium and sharp bowling ball. This one is pretty much square in the medium and sharp category. This one got discontinued too soon. This one was really, really good. Then Troublemaker Solid, the new gray and black ball from Deviate, is going to be a weaker medium and smooth option. So let's look at this Isaac. Perfectly well-rounded, one ball in each category. I like it a lot. Very, very well-rounded. You have two balls in the weak and smooth, which is great. If you're a two-hander, you're probably a little more rev dominant. So it's good to have a couple more weaker options. If you're looking at another ball, the biggest gap I see right now, honestly, the gaps are very even. Maybe one more medium and sharp bowling ball. It's a little bit weaker, like a Road Warrior, like a Hammer Anger, like a Hyper Venom could be really good in that slot. That would be my next recommendation, though. But otherwise, well done to make a well-rounded arsenal.